The SA Heritage Resources Agency has approved the dumping of mine byproducts into a historical diamond pit in Jaggersfontein in the Free State, after the disaster that hit the town when a tailings dam burst last Sunday. The agency charged with safeguarding heritage sites in the country previously received 5 applications over 10 years to allow for waste from the dam to be offloaded into the pit, but had declined this application. I'm now joined by the spokesperson of the agency, Ben Mwasinga, to explain why it was that it took a disaster to grant this permission and what considerations had to be given to preserving this particular diamond mine pit. Mr. Mwasinga, good afternoon. Welcome to today, and thank you very much for your time on eNCA this afternoon. So I understand the approval has now been done this week and as an immediate decision by the Department of Water and Sanitation, but previously your agency had declined the applications, had turned down the applications by the company to dump the sludgy byproduct of mining into the historical diamond pit. What changed your mind this time around?
Good afternoon, Dan. And firstly, let me give our condolences to all those who have been affected by this disaster. I can imagine that it is devastating for the families. First and foremost, it is not true that we have only granted permission now. The first application we received to backfill the mine was in 2012. And SAHRA actually granted that permission in 2013. So we actually approved this in 2013, but there was an appeal from the Jaggersfontein Community Trust because they felt that impacting the heritage resource may affect tourism in the area. So the Jaggersfontein Development Company then withdrew its application in 2014. And subsequently, they applied to SAHRA for various works to be done to rehabilitate the historical pit. So we have granted numerous permits over the years. We have also issued them with certain advice over the year. But essentially, it is a historical resource, so we have approached it with sensitivity. But to basically answer your question, we did grant a permit, but it was appealed by the Community Trust.
Okay, but you said there were then other applications in 2018, 2019, and 2020. Why were those not approved?
Those applications were in fact incomplete. And as you know, because we are dealing with the oldest hand-dug mine in the world, you have to approach it with sensitivity. If the application is not complete, we cannot issue the permit. And this goes for applications for all of our heritage resources, not just this particular mine.
What is the likely impact of this latest decision then to approve the dumping of the sludgy byproduct into this historical diamond pit?
Well, in 2013, when we first issued the permit granting them permission to do so, we felt that the historical impact, this particular pit is 250 meters deep. So we felt that the dumping wouldn't impact on the resource itself. And based on the size of the mine, as you can imagine, we could make provision for that back then and even now. But at this point in time, because it is a disaster and because the community has been devastated, there is no way that we can put our heritage considerations before the community. And therefore, we issued an emergency permit, I'd say 2 days ago.
Do you have an idea what the Jaggersfontein Community Trust thinks today? I mean, they opposed the previous approval in 2013.
Well, at this point in time, as we said, when you're dealing with issues that impact on people's lives, you have to put the human considerations before the conservation needs. I know that that might sound contradictory because we are a conservation institute, but human lives always and will come first, and they do take precedent. So yes, I imagine that the tourism concerns that they presented in 2013, those have been negated by the fact that the entire town is now a disaster area. So yes, they can still make representation to SAHRA, but at this point in time, we feel that it is more important to put the needs of the community first, and we can still mitigate against any impacts against the resource in the future.
So this dumping will continue for as long as it's necessary, or is there a set timeline you've given the company?
No, at this point in time, we will allow the dumping to continue until the community is restored to a state of safety, and we cannot ascertain as to what levels or what how many liters of the sludge will be pumped into the mine at this point. But as we said, for our sake, we will make sure that the necessary mitigations are put in place. And as I said, also the mine is 250 meters deep. Therefore, I think it will be able to handle the amount of liquid that will be poured into it at this point.
Okay, now from a heritage perspective, I just want a little bit more education. I was not aware that there is a bigger and oldest, what did you say, the biggest hand-dug diamond mine in the world is situated in Jaggersfontein. I mean, growing up here and learning geography, we also always thought that the one in Kimberley is the one that is very famous and the big one. So what's the what's important about preserving this heritage in Jaggersfontein?
Thanks. It's quite important because it speaks to contemporary South Africa and the modernization of our society. So this particular mine was, they began digging this mine in 1817, and by 1907, it was more famous than the Big Hole. But as you know, the Big Hole in Kimberley was marketed, and it has also received a lot of interpretation around the site, which has made it more famous than this particular one. But this one is also quite important. Number one, we have a law that any historical mines that are over 100 years of age fall into what is known as general protection. So it's not just applicable to this one. Any mine that is over 100 years of age would fall under general protection and therefore will be considered a heritage resource. But this one specifically obviously talks to the industrialization of this country and also the modernization of South Africa based on diamond and gold mining. So it's a very important resource, and how it is conserved is something that, again, we will determine based on whatever mitigations we can put in place after this particular disaster.
Mr. Ben Mwasinga, thank you very much for your time and explanations here on today on eNCA. He's, of course, from the South African Heritage Resources Agency.